part 2 of Blast of Strangeness, episode 19, podcast. Okay, so now part 2. To some people out there think that mental health and mental illness and conditions ain't real, when in reality they actually are real. It's just, I honestly do not know why people would doubt that. So now, as you all just saw part 1, please make sure you're going to stick around for part 2, which is right now, and it's in real time here on YouTube live for the podcast. So anyway, now if you're going through any of this to where you are going through this, just know that if you're in this situation to where you have a family member who may have that type of condition and you may think that it's not real, well, just know that it is real. And for anyone that's in that situation also, just know that you're not alone if you're in a family to where you have that type of mental health issues or mental health conditions and such, or mental illness and such. And if you have a relative who doesn't think that it's actually real for you, just know that it is real for you. And you can talk about that here on this podcast. You can feel safe here. No judgment here on this very podcast. No judgment at all. If you want to email the podcast, please feel free. I'll read the email right now, right here live, right now on the podcast. Just email the podcast for that. So now another thing, this episode, the only reason why this ended up being a 2-part thing is because, I'm just so sick and tired of people doubting that these things don't really exist in the real world when they actually really do exist, And I think part 1 still may be uploading. So if you didn't get to see part 1, after this, please watch part 1. Now, anyway, it's just, I cannot figure out why people doubt this type of stuff does really exist and that they don't think it's really real when it actually is real. So now, if you're someone who's going through this, whether it's your child or an adult or an elder or a sibling or whatever, just know that you're not alone, okay? And just know you can always talk to someone if you need to. Just know there is all types of help out there. So don't feel like you're alone, because you're not. Okay? Now, if people have made you feel worthless, like you don't exist, or anything like that, just know that there's something wrong with them, not you. They do that to make themselves feel better. And you know what? They probably sit there and think it's funny that you have these type of problems, when in reality it's not. And when they know it, they will literally do anything or say something just to get you going. That way, just so you end up doing or acting a certain way towards them, because they know it's making you angry. They know. That way, so they can sit there and make sure you get punished for it. That's why they do it. Like cocky, smart remarks to people, especially family members, and things such as that nature. So anyway, oh, here we go again with the dropping of views. What happened in part 1 too. Let it, whatever. And yes, so the name of this podcast is Blast of Strangeness, where I talk about all different types of things on this podcast. So you really never know what's going to be talked about on here next. Like I said, I talk about I talk about alien encounter abduction experiences that I've had. I also talk about the paranormal encounter experiences that I've also have had. I also talk about just bad mentor educators / teacher figures that I've had. Stuff like that. And I also talk about how I was actually scammed by a third-party seller through a local store. The whole experience and story on that. I also talk about on here slumlord landlords. And I also talk about on here mental health issues and mental illness and those type of conditions and medical conditions of such of those things. And, mostly stuff like that to talk about, And I'm going to say this again, something I had mentioned in a couple of other episodes of this podcast, but I'm also going to mention it again. For anyone who is voting for Congress, just know that get out and vote for Anthony Constantino for Congress. I think it's June 23rd or even before then. I can't really remember. But just know Anthony Constantino is running for Congress for New York's 21st District. So just please get out and vote for Anthony Constantino for Congress. I just wanted to say that briefly. Anyway, so now back to the video. So, like I said, on this podcast, I talk about the most random of things. Like I said, you'll never know what's going to be talked about on here next. It's always a mystery. That's kind of like why I started this podcast, And something else that's going to also be talked about on this podcast, that's actually going to be in the next episode, which you're in luck because there's 2 more episodes that are going to be on here. After this episode, I'm going into another topic, something totally different. That's going to also be a 2-part. There's a surprise. I also talk about in here how the truth about how Hollywood actually treats famous people. You may be watching them on TV, like on a TV series, a television program show, or in a movie, or in a music video or whatever. Just because their life seems like a bowl of cherries on that screen, just know it is not like that behind the scenes whatsoever. Yeah. And a lot of people also don't know about that. Okay, well, some people do, some people don't. And it's just one of them things, And unfortunately, it happens. And it's very sad. But we will get into that in the next 2 parts episode, which will be on here. After this episode, we're going to do episode 3. And then, let me rephrase. We're going to do part 3 and part 4. So after part 3 is part 4. And that's just going to be another 2-part video on a topic that I'm going to talk about on here. Also, just know that you can actually start a podcast for really dirt cheap on YouTube if you want. You don't really need much, actually, to start one, honestly. And it won't cost you much, honestly. You can do it all for dirt cheap or literally next to nothing. If you want to, that is. So anyway, like I was saying, I just do not understand why people, sometimes often in situations to where knowing that a family member or someone within that family, whether they live in your home or they live outside of your home, who actually have mental illness and mental health conditions and, mental health issues, you're literally going to sit there and try to provoke them to get them going, to start with you on something over nothing? Really? Okay. That's just interesting. But for anyone that is going through a situation like that where someone does have mental health issues, mental illness, or any type of condition related to those, whether you have a family member who has that condition, a lot of you would probably know what I'm actually talking about. Just know that it's okay. And, it's just, people go through things, they really do. Hey, if you have anxiety, for example, if you have anxiety, you have anxiety. Nothing you can really do about it. It happens, and some other conditions too. It happens. It's unfortunate, but hey, it does happen. And it's just that's just the real reality of things, Like I said, it does happen. It happens all the time. And just know it's nothing to be ashamed of. You don't have to be ashamed of it. It's okay. There's no judgment on this channel whatsoever. That's not what this podcast and channel is about. Because I don't think anyone should be judged on this podcast channel. Just know this is a judgment-free, safe zone podcast. That light flickers one more time. There's going to be an issue. Probably because the air conditioner's on. Well, it is summertime and it's hot as hell out, so. And where I'm recording this podcast episode, if the air conditioner is not on, it gets stuffy in here and very, very hot. So that's why it's on and it has to stay on because it is summertime. And I am not going to have it be stuffy in here or hot. It's got to stay cool in here. So that's probably why that light keeps doing that, but whatever. Let it. Oh, so now, last week, this podcast ran into a major problem. It was related to a few things. One, I ran into a situation with some people who didn't think that something I was dealing with was actually real, and they thought I was just doing it for the attention, which I wasn't. So that just resulted in me being very angry and annoyed and very sad and upset. So that's another problem of why the podcast was so short last week. And the other problem that this podcast ran into last week is that there was a little power outage during the time that this podcast was supposed to be recorded last week. So, unfortunately, due to the last week's power outage, due to the thunderstorms that were really bad with the winds, the podcast was filmed, but it was just very short. And I apologize for that. Because unfortunately, that power outage, it's kind of hard to film a podcast with the equipment. And because the equipment requires to be plugged in and use electricity. And it also requires internet. And with the power out, I kind of can't do that. Anyway. So, another location to where I get iced coffee, as you just saw here briefly there. The one location that's a lot closer to me, I actually gave them a compliment because every time when I walk in there, they don't sit there and push a self-serve because they don't have a self-serve, which is fine, which I don't have a problem with that. I'd rather have them make it anyway because it's part of their job. And every time I walk in there, they know me by now because I've been a regular customer in there for years. And I walk in, tell them what I want. They make it. A lot of time I just walk in and they automatically already know to already literally be made and done. That's great. That's service right there. And I complimented them for that. And I actually got a pin with the store's name on it, with iced coffee on it. And that right there is corporate level VIP for a customer. And I thank them for that so much. And something else I'm also going to mention on here briefly. So I know a lot of you also have heard something about supposedly aliens are supposedly the work of Area 51. Well, a little note on that. I can't really confirm whether or not if it is or isn't. But little note, what I can confirm with that right now is there is a very strong possibility. I mean, if it is, it is. If it's not, it's not. But just know that aliens really do exist, and you can actually see them at Area 51. Except one, there's a couple of problems here. Problem one, you're not going to get in there, but you may be able to get not too close, but just close enough to see them. Two, you would need government clearance, and you would also need permission from Area 51 to actually get in there, first of all. Second of all, and you would also need an Area 51 badge to get in, and you would need all proper paperwork and lots of documentation just to get the clearance to get in there. That's very highly sensitive. So, good luck trying to get into Area 51 with the aliens. I mean, if you do end up getting the clearance to get in there, just know that if you do end up getting abducted by the aliens, just know that Area 51 cannot be held responsible for that. I just wanted to throw that disclaimer in here about that. And also for warning and safety, I just wanted to put that reminder in here as well. So that way, just so you're all aware of that, Oh, this thing almost fell off here. Wow. Must not want me talking about it or something. I don't know. Anyway, I briefly just wanted to interrupt the video. I wanted to interrupt really quick just to say that because I feel that it's important. That's all I'm saying about it. Anyway. Oh yeah, there's something else too. So, well, a lot of you may not know this too, but I actually have anxiety issues. Yes, it's true. Yes, I also have some medical conditions besides. But we're not going to get into that because that's not something to be that's not something to be discussed on here right now. But so therefore, like I said, I deal with it. I live with the conditions. I've gone through it. I've seen it day to day. I'm just living proof of it. That's all I'm saying. Just with that condition of the anxiety condition and the medical conditions. But that's all between me and my doctor. Really? Another drop? Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, okay. Oh, and by the way, welcome to the podcast. Can't believe I forgot to mention it in part 1. Well, you know what? That's what part 2 is for. So, now, has anyone watched? Now, if you haven't watched all the other episodes of this podcast, start from the beginning. Start from the beginning and watch all the other episodes of the podcast. Feel free. You don't have to watch them all at once. Watch them whenever you have time. You don't necessarily have to watch them right away. That's just your preference. So now, when you hit subscribe, just be sure to read the disclaimer first before you hit that subscribe button. Okay? Thank you. Also, be sure to like the video. Be sure to share. I would normally say also be sure to comment, but that's all turned off right now, so that don't matter. But anywho, that's besides the point. That's besides the point. Just please subscribe, share, and like the video, and give it a thumbs up. Give it a thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. You do have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. I personally would suggest you hit the notification bell button for all of them. It's the red notification bell button. Hit that, and that way so you never miss a video when they're uploaded. I'm just going to reiterate this again really quick. No, the podcast is not actually being canceled. That was just due to those 2 issues that I ran into last week. And I literally thought about canceling the podcast and being done with it because I was just very, very, very upset about the thing that I ran into with some people. And it wasn't necessarily the power outage issue, but that on top of it made it all worse, unfortunately. Speaking of power outages, a lot of you may not know this, but I'll tell you anyway. A little story. A couple of years ago, this is a true story. I actually had COVID twice. The first time I had COVID, there actually was also a power outage at the time, and that made being sick with COVID worse. I could tell you that much. And yes, I mean, I did eventually recover from it and felt better eventually. And it just sucked that during the time that there was a power outage to make it worse. And then there was someone that lives across the street from me was having their driveway all redone. So here I'm all sick and shit at the time. And then I got someone knocking on the door saying, oh, there's going to be all this noise. I was like, okay, first of all, I'm sick. I don't care. Or have fun. Do whatever. Bye-bye. I thought to myself, wow, do you really want to get COVID? Apparently they did. Apparently so. Or so I thought. But just know that if you do end up with COVID, just make sure it's not during a power outage. that makes it worse. So now, see, the second time I had COVID, there was no power outage. And the second time, it wasn't as bad as like the first time. I recovered a lot faster from it the second time, which is weird. But that's besides the point. Yeah, I know it had nothing to do with anything, but I just wanted to share that little bit of information and that story about that. Besides, also with a few things, I'm also I just wanted to just mostly just cover a few topics here and that way you all know where things are at now. And yes, like I said, I recovered eventually and felt better both times. And I'm one of them people, I don't like being sick. I hate it. Been there, done that. It's been horrible before when I've been sick and shit. Oh, good God. It is honestly not the best thing to be sick like I was that time. Oh my God, it was horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. No, it's just I have a medical condition where I have a cough like that. So that's common for me to hack like that. And another thing. So another story. Also, a couple years ago, I actually I ended up. How would I say this? I actually ended up having a kidney stone that had to be surgically removed because it was about almost 8 centimeters long inside me. I mind you. So, and I had kidney stones a couple years prior to that. Because the first time I thought it went away. Nope. It didn't. I was wrong. So second time, so I go to the emergency room. And, they're just like, have you ever had kidney stones before? And I said, yes. They said, okay. They said, that's just the number one question we need to know. It's like, all right. So I was just like, well, can they be removed? They said, no, unfortunately, not right now. Because the person who does that is not in. I said, oh, okay. So they're like, all right, we'll give you a referral. Go see the person in a couple days. I said, all right. So I get the referral. I call the specialist doctor's office. The specialist at the doctor's office goes, oh, I don't think your condition's that bad in order for you to even see a specialist. I said, okay. I said, well, the hospital seems to think so. So he was like, oh, well, no, I don't. I was like, all right, well, whatever. See ya. Bye. Didn't want to waste your time anyway. So, needless to say, I actually ended up calling around and ended up going to a different place with it. And as soon as I called this other place I had called, they said, come in right away. I said, all right. So I go in, I explain everything. The guy goes, okay. He goes, well, I can tell you right now, Blastinum's not going to work. I said, damn it. He said, well, it's not going to work for the first option for you. It's like, okay. He said, but I could have you do another option. It's like, what's that? Just mostly be out for surgery, and we can do a double J stent to where we go inside you, remove the kidney stone, blast it all to smithereens. Well, collect all the pieces, blast it to where it's all like dust inside you. It's like, oh, okay. He goes, but unfortunately, you would have to have this stent inside of you for at least a week. I'm like, oh? Well, yeah. I said, so how does that work? He said, oh, you'd be surprised how it goes in and how far it's got to go. I said, oh, no. I said, fine, option 2. I said, whoa, wait. Before I choose option 2, what's option 3? So he goes, well, sir, option 3 is to where it's kind of like option 2, except for I could still do the same thing, like I'm doing for option 2, except you'd have to wear this thing attached to the head of your penis, or the hole is to urinate out of. Ew. I was like, oh, no. Oh, hell to the no. He goes, it's like a male tampon. I was like, hell to the no. I said, Doc? He said, yeah. I said, I would personally prefer option 1, but since you said it's not going to really work, we're going to go with option 2. He said, okay, that sounds much better. I was like, that's kind of what I thought, even though I don't really want option 2, want option 1. But considering, so, funny thing is, he's like, all right, so we'll set up surgery. I was like, oh, cool. Within a week. I'm like, all right. So the surgery comes, and they say, all right, go down to the hospital, because we're going to set you up with surgery. I said, all right. So I go there, walk in, and they said, okay. So the main receptionist person was like, you're here for what, dear? I said, oh, I think I'm here to see a doctor for blood work or something. I said, I was told that I needed a fasting for the vitamin D or whatever. And she was like, oh, okay, dear, follow me. I was like, all right. And she was just like, she starts asking me a few medical questions. I was like, the basics. And she was like, whoa, hold on. I was like, what? What do you mean? She goes, oh, yeah, you are having blood work done. It's just, she's like, it is a fasting, but it's not a vitamin D fasting for 12 hours. I was like, oh, it's not? And she said, oh, no, dear. She said, it is blood work. She said, but it's not for that. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I was supposed to have surgery today, too. And she was like, hold on. So she's like, oh, okay. And she was like, it says here, after your blood work, you're going home. I'm like, what? Okay. I leave. I'm about maybe 10, 15 minutes from just getting back to the street that I live on to get to my home, back to my home. The hospital calls and is like, oh, no, dear, you need to turn around. You weren't supposed to leave. They're like, we don't know why she told you that. It's like, that makes 2 of us. So then, all of a sudden, this is where it gets better. So I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I did not know I was not supposed to leave. I thought after the blood work, I was supposed to go home because that's what I was told. She said, oh, no, dear. Just follow me. So another lady, so I walk back in and I look at the receptionist. I'm like, apparently I wasn't supposed to leave with their blood work, but I was told that after blood work, I was supposed to leave. I don't know what's going on. She goes, hold on. So she goes and gets this one lady. So then this different lady walks out. She goes, all right, dear, follow me. I was like, all right. And so we get to this one part of the hospital. And she goes, all right, dear, your family has to stay here. Just you, dear. I was like, oh, okay. Okay. And so they were like, oh, wait, did you have the COVID test done outside? I said, yep. They said, okay. I said, results should be in. She goes, all right, well, check them as soon as you talk to a different receptionist lady. I was like, okay. So we get all that straightened out. They're like, yep, we got it. You're good. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, unfortunately, you got to wear a mask due to the COVID that's going around in the first place. even though your COVID test came back fine. I said, okay. They just said it was just a standard protocol for the procedure. That's all it was. So I have the surgery done. So then I wake up, I recover in like the part 2 of the surgery, and so I'm like, okay. So at one point I had to use the bathroom because I had to urinate horribly, and I see all this like just leftover blood from like the surgery, and lots of pain, and I'm like, oh my god. The nurse hears me and they're screaming and crying. She comes in, she's like, oh dear, what's the problem? Like, all the blood? I said, I know I just had surgery, I know that, but the pain. And she was like, so then she explains it. I'm like, now certain things after what am I supposed to have and not have? And no one told me nothing. And I was like, what the fuck? Okay. So I leave the hospital, went home. And, well, of course, the pain eventually did go away, but that's besides the point. So then, a week later, it's time to have the stent out, which required a different specialist that was also through that hospital at one of their other specialist offices, which was not far from there, but it was out a little further than just there. And I was like, all right. So they asked me the stupidest question. Oh, you ready to have your stent out? Try and be an week or kidney stone? I was like, well, yeah, obviously. Proper fucking hello, idiots. So then, so they get it out. I see it come out of me, and I'm just like, holy shit! That was in there causing all that pain? Yep. I said to myself, wow, that stent was huge inside me. They were just like, oh, don't worry, we'll be fine. I was like, what? They go, oh, your peen will be fine. I was like, my penis will be fine? They went, yep. I was like, oh, okay. They're like, oh, don't worry, dear. Everything will go back to normal. It's like, okay, that's what I thought. I actually watched it come out. And then I had said to the people, the specialist office that was taking it out, I was like, hey, after surgery, I wasn't told any of these things and like stuff what I could have and shouldn't have. And no one told me anything. Like they supposed to. They claimed they couldn't answer that question. Yeah. And I was never... So then some specialist, they wanted me to go back for an x-ray slightly after. One, I was not feeling up to it because I was still recovering from everything. And I was just like, no. Because apparently they wanted me to have 2 things done all in the same day. But then they told me that I couldn't. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not going back. Whatever. I'm done. Honestly, I said, this is just bullshit. Fucking things out. I had the surgery. We're done. Goodbye. Nope. No. So I said to the specialist office finally, I said, you know what? I said, you want me to have this shit done 2 different things in the same fucking day? And then you told me, no, have one thing done one day, then go back to another office the day after. I said, no. You just told me I could, and now you're telling me I can't have it done in all in the same day? What the fuck? So then, I finally said, you know what? I said, well, let me tell you something. Either I have these things done within the same day, at the same location, or I'm not having it done, period. You pick. I said, oh, and are you going to pay for the gas? Are you going to pay for my gas to put in my car to do all this? Are you paying for it? They didn't know what to say about that. I said, well, then you know what? It's not getting done. And if you have a problem with it, Too bad. So sad. Now, that's actually a true story on that. So anyway, so now, just know that if you are going through any type of mental health conditions or any type of mental illness or any type of conditions related to it, such as ones that were covered in a previous video, just know that no judgment here. Just know this is a safe space where you can talk about it if you'd like. If you'd like to, you can. You can also email the podcast, and I'll actually read your email live right here on the podcast. And I will see you all in part 3 and part 4. Bye. Stay tuned for it. Bye.